So I promised from the last few movies that I made, the people that have contacted me and asked for more behind-the-scenes stuff. So with the new movie we're working on, which is the Scrimm Cartoni Chronicles VI, Berserkers, because it's always the title, and then the monster name is the other part of the title. So it's always the Scrimm Cartoni Chronicles part whatever, and then the monster is the subtitle. So this one is Berserkers. And so that's what I'm going to start doing behind the scenes for you guys, and we have more than one camera now. We actually have 3. We're going to be doing a lot more behind the scenes stuff on amateur movies, because there's nothing more exciting than watching behind the scenes stuff about guys making amateur movies. Anyway, so this right here is going to be a Berserker. And I'm kind of working on him right now. Obviously, I got to get him done. Actually, I'm way behind. This should have been done about a month ago. And I've still got quite a bit to do. But this is a Berserker. Let me see if I can turn him towards you. This is obviously where the actor's eyes will stick out of the mask. Mouth area is sort of done. I mean, there's a lot of things that are sort of done. I just finished putting in the Outer Limits style bone structure here. I grew up on the Outer Limits. It's always been one of my big influence, probably the main influence really of the things that I like to do. So anyway, this is the guy I'm working on, and I've got to get him done. We will probably end up casting 3 or 4 of these guys, rubber masks, and the hands, which are over there. And then we'll just dress them up to look like different ones, because we want it to look like there's 20 or 30 of them, so we'll paint them differently, and maybe we'll throw a hat on one, or make some weird different paint jobs and just change it up all the time so it looks like there's a whole bunch of these things running around the city, when in fact there only be 3 or 4. So I went off to the makeup shop today with my friend Darren, who stars as Angus Scrimm, and we managed to get 1 gallon of rubber mask, rubber latex mask. Oh, forget it, mask latex, and that's what we'll cast these guys in. I was going to do foam latex to begin with, but there's no need for it to be that intricate. These are just going to be rubber monster masks. So we're just going to do it out of rubber mask type rubber. A lot of rubber in that comment. And then we'll have these guys done, hopefully, within the next few weeks. The other thing I got to do today is I'm going to start building nurnies. You don't know what nurnies are? Well, I guess I should probably show you then. Anyway, so this is going to be a Berserker when I finish him. There you go. Alright, so I'm about to make some nurnies for our new movie. This is some more of that behind the scenes stuff. I wanted to buy 2 gallons of rubber today, but they only had enough left in their drum to give me 1 gallon. But, you know, make do with what we can. I at least have enough to get started, so we're going to open this bucket of rubber latex, which smells oh so good. And you want to be really careful when you're using rubber, especially like I am in my basement, because if I get any of this rubber on my carpet, my wife is going to be really angry. Anyway, so a nurnie is essentially, you just take rubber latex and you paint it on a flat surface like this TV tray. You just get a nice layer of it on here. Not really that critical, it's not that big a deal. A nurnie, for the record, I found out these were called nurnies. I didn't know what you called them. Nurnies, back when I was a kid, back in the 60s and 70s, nurnies were the little things, the little bits that you glued on the outside skin of a spaceship model, for example. And the idea was the more of this stuff you put on the outside of the spaceship model, when you had it, you know, on screen, those little bits broke up the light from the stars, whatever your light source is supposed to be, and that gives the model weight. Makes it look, because if you remember if you've ever seen a 1950s science fiction movie, you always had sleek, polished rocket type things. And because there's no light breakup, they look like what they are, models. So you put nurnies on spaceship models, and that made them look bigger, weightier. But that has changed, since most spaceships now are done in a computer, and nurnies are now what I'm making right now. And what we're going to do here is we're going to paint this tabletop with a layer of rubber, and then we're going to let it dry. And then what you do is, after it's dry, it takes a couple weeks for rubber latex to cure, so it stays sticky. So what you do then is you take your fingers and you just rough it up. And you do the whole thing. You just rough it up, and it'll tear, and it'll make little bits that are torn up, and it'll rip holes in it. And when you peel it off, when it's all done, it'll look like this kind of lattice, kind of torn up, gooey looking, well, stringy looking thing. And so what you do with that is, when you're doing one of your bloody effects, like where the Berserker guys are ripping somebody's throat out, you take one of these nurnies and you coat it in, blood. You soak it up in blood, and you darken it red color, and or even darken that. You make it an artery blood kind of color. And then you, like, for him, the sculpts, the monster mask over there, you would hook this latticey, torn up looking stuff like in his teeth, so that when he yanks up off his victim, there's this stringy, nasty looking stuff hanging from his throat or his mouth, resembling torn flesh or ripped out throat or whatever. And it just makes a violent scene seem a lot creepier, when in fact it's just a simple rubber thing. So that's what I'm doing right now, is putting down enough rubber to create, I'll probably make, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these, and we will use them during our violent, bloody, murder, violent scenes from our movie, and that way we can just gross you out with more creepy, nasty stuff, when in fact it's just a layer of rubber on this table, right here, right here. So when you see it in the movie, it's, remember, I did it right here. Stop watching me, it's creepy. Alright, so it's been a couple of hours since I put the rubber on this table. Now what I'm going to do is just take my fingers and rough it up. And just randomly rough it up. Because you want to turn it into, like, essentially like a torn up lattice. Like almost like a fishing net, but more ripped up. So you just go through and start messing with it. And there's no real technique to it. It's just tear it up, basically, is what you're doing. Okay, now you can see the rubber's all roughed up on this tabletop, right? Well, it's not cured yet, so now the trick is, because it'll stick together if you don't do this, you just dump a lot of baby powder on it. Get that all nice and rubbed in. And a couple weeks from now, or a week or so, or whatever it is, this won't need this, but for right now, it will make your legs stick together because it's not cured yet. So then the trick is you pull it off the table. Carefully. Okay, so we're just peeling this off the table carefully. Well, sort of carefully. Alright, let me get this all mixed in with the powder. Now, what you then do is you color this all up. You get it all dark red, and then you mix it in with the blood and all the other things that are going on in your scene. And then, for example, you have the monster just, say he's just ripped on this guy's throat, then you hook this to the mask, and when he rips it up, here's all this torn flesh and crap that comes up off the creature, or off the victim, excuse me. So this just resembles, well, it implies ripped and torn up, chewed up flesh. When it's not colored right, obviously, now, because it's just rubber, but when it's all made up to look torn up or bloody and gooey and all that. When the monster pretends to rip it up out of its throat, then this will look like torn up flesh, and it'll add ooh factor to a scene. And so I need about, well, I don't know, 4 or 5 more of those, and then we'll have nasty, bloody effects for a movie. But again, as with all things in movies, it's not real, and I really get irritated when people get mad at me. How can you make movies like that? Well, it's just rubber. It's just little bits of rubber. Okay. Okay, it's April 29th, 2013. This is behind the scenes of what we've been working on so far for this year's movie. You guys were asking to see some behind the scenes stuff. This is as behind the scenes as it can get so far for this year's movie. And there you go. Now you're up to date. Well, the script is being written. It's almost done. Brandon's doing a good job helping me out on that one. Darren's been practicing all sorts of special effects. We're going to do a whole business where we resurrect the bad vampire leader lady from the vampire movie a couple years ago. We're going to resurrect her with this whole entire sequence shot on a virtual set. It'll all be shot really just on a chroma key set in our buddy's in Darren's garage, and then we're going to put all these people in these virtual sets, shoot a bunch of different angles, and it'll look, hopefully, real. Anyway, okay, this is behind the scenes so far for 2013.